This is Guitarist Denis Taaffe, and I'm in Bloomington, Indiana. I'm in my home studio where I record my albums, and I want to welcome you to the making of my 315th album. Okay, and it's actually called Modern Rock Guitar, Volume 315, right? Optical Vinyl. Okay, and let's take a look at the album cover real fast. And the way this came about was it was actually a picture of a grain silo, and I kind of added some lights to it and so on. It started to look like a record and things. Now obviously, you know, an album used to be an LP, you know, vinyl on vinyl. Okay, it was analog. And optical, of course, referring to you know, kind of CDs and things, you know, or laser reads, more digital. And actually, in doing some research, I found that there's actually a company that actually did optical vinyl. So it would take a vinyl record and be able to read it digitally. Anyway, so there's that's how I came up with the album cover. There, not much to it really, but in any case, real quick, for those who aren't familiar with my music, obviously I'm a guitarist, and I play guitar and use guitar loops done on the fly, which is where you're playing guitar, you record a little piece of what you're playing, it starts to loop back, and then you put layers on top of that. Okay, and all my music is improvised on the spot. And I don't add any overdubs or anything to it after the fact. So really what you're hearing is exactly what was coming out of my amps here. And I use 2 amps in stereo. In this particular instance, for this album, I used an Albion. And it's actually a solid state amp, 2x12. And I also used a Fender Deluxe Reverb tube amp. So kind of have analog and tube. And for this particular album, I used the new guitar, a Yamaha Rev Star RS320. And I did a video on that earlier. And so I use that guitar on this album. And this particular album has 11 tracks. And we're going to go through them here, one by one. I can tell you what I recall about recording those tracks, or what I had in mind musically. Okay. So yeah, this album was just released. So we're going to go through it here. It has 11 tracks. It's kind of a long album. It's 66 minutes and 28 seconds long. Now, one thing to keep in mind, it was my 315th album. My first album was recorded in 1999. It was my debut album. It was a conventionally recorded album. In other words, I would do it, record, you know, bass and then rewind, practice the guitar part, and record that, rewind, and so on and so on. And then the rest of the albums are all recorded live in the studio, like this one was. Where basically I turn on the recorders, have a mic against each amp, and I just play. Okay, and albums, basically, after the first album, albums 2 to 200, okay, are what I consider rock albums, and from album 200 to this one, 315, is kind of a contemporary instrumental. It's a new age instrumental rock guitar. And basically, it's just, to me, I always think of it as film music. You know, and in fact, when I'm playing and recording, it's the music that I really, really like. You know, and it's not the kind of music I'm playing to, you know, to have, you know, people at a bar shaking their booty, or to be on the radio or that kind of thing, you know. For me, it's really kind of film music, but also music I like to listen to very much, kind of this modern guitar things. Okay. And just as a side note, I watched some of these on YouTube, you know, music business videos, and they're talking about, you've got to market yourself as a brand, you know, and things, and you have to get all these, you know, social media likes and so on and things, you know. And it's kind of strange that they forget that, you know, you have to create the music. That's what it's about. It's not, you know. But they're talking about, well, you've got to make T-shirts and sell your brand and all this business, you know. And I tell you, just as a musician, you know, you're much better off just concentrating on your music and not worrying about any of that junk. You know, I mean, that's what it's all about for me, anyway. You know, yeah. So here, you know, obviously you can't please everyone with your music. I'm sure there's lots of, you know, people who don't like this, don't like that, whatever. In any case, for me, this is what I really enjoy, music-wise. And definitely I always am thinking in terms of film music for this album. So, let's get started. And this first track is kind of a long track, and it's a track called Stylus. And let's take a listen to that real quick. Here we go. Yeah, so this is on the Yamaha, and this is on the F sharp minor right here. And they're switching to an E major right here. Those open strings. And I'm playing on that root note and then playing those kind of like thirds is what they are actually. What I like about this track is it gives it the E major gives it a big theme. You know? So here I've got two layers of patterns here synced together. And I'll tell you, it's not necessarily that the patterns are that hard to play. However, what is more difficult is playing them in time. Okay, and I mean, we're talking, they have to be perfectly in time. And in my, well, probably laziness, really, the way I should do it, and I always think, okay, I'll do it for the next album or whatever, is to actually have a drum machine and have some headphones or a metronome of some sort that gives you that timing, and then it's a lot easier to play in that time. I mean, I do okay, but I do notice that it would be a lot more in sync if I did it that way. So maybe for the next album, you know. And I come pretty close, but when I listen back to the recording, I realize, you know, it's just so, you have to be so technically precise, and it's really hard when you have no reference, you know. I mean, I know I'm playing at about 120 beats per minute, but to recreate that without a metronome and to be spot on, it is quite a task, and it'd be much simpler if I had a basis, a metronome, you know, a beat to go off of. You know, that's why playing with drums for me is a lot simpler, or at least to have that in the headphones while I'm playing, which I didn't do. I probably should have, but okay. Let's go to the 8-minute 34-second mark. So there I'm doing some swells, right here, these kind of chord swells. That's where you play a chord with the pick, hit the strings, and then with the volume down so they don't hear the pick, and then you turn up the volume, and it makes it kind of sound like an organ type thing. And so I use some of that right here, even on the high end there. Those are little swells. And it's one of my favorite things to do. Especially for little melodies and things like that. Yeah. And it works really well with that pattern playing. You know, and again, it reminds me very much of kind of probably 80s film music. By the way, I'm perspiring because it's really hot in here, man. And it's strange because it's actually raining outside. In any case. Alright, well, let's move on to track number 2. And track 2 is actually, there are 2 parts to it. One on track 2 and then one on track 10. But the majority of it is found here. The beginnings of this track is track 2. Right here, and it's called Phonograph. Right? Part 1. Let's take a listen to that. Ah, yes. Now, here I can tell you right off the bat, because I wasn't quite used to that Yamaha. I have a preset to drop it an octave to make it sound like a bass. And in this particular one, that Yamaha has 2 humbucking pickups and a 3-way switch. And I usually play the bass emulation on the neck pickup, but here I had forgotten to switch it to the neck pickup, and so it was actually in between both pickups, and it gave the bass kind of a honky sound, a real mid-rangey type sound. kind of a working off of a kind of a blues. You know, it's got that repeating bass line. So here it was a lot of fun to try different things, chord shapes, chord voicings, and other sounds as well. And layering those and seeing where it goes from there. Let's fast forward to the 3 minute and 15 mark. And the whole track is only 5 minutes and 21 seconds. Yes, now that sound is actually a note with a huge reverb. Right? Reverb. Make it sound like it's in a canyon or something. And that gives the track depth. Like, oh, that sounds really far away. Whereas other guitar sounds sound much closer to. So there are some double stops, and then over that some swells as well. And you know, I hadn't used the swells in a long time because my guitar, old guitar, the Parker, had a broken volume pot, so I couldn't do swells because it would make all kinds of noises. It needed to be replaced. But I'm glad to see that I can still do that, because I used to do that all the time, you know. Yeah. So here I'm just building upon that basic idea. And there I'm playing a harmonized guitar. There. Playing some of the lead type sounds. Now, as I recall, the reason why this is broken into two parts is that I have a squeaky studio chair, and in fact, I bought a replacement. I haven't replaced it yet, but in moving around it was squeaking, and unfortunately the microphones picked up the squeaking. So right in the middle you hear this squeak. It's like, wait, what is that? So I had to cut that out, and then it was right in the middle, so I'm left with two different tracks. And actually I'm kind of glad, because that bass pattern is repeating all the time. It doesn't really change. And if it had been a long track, it would get really old quickly, you know. But here you've got a whole bunch of layers and things, so you don't really notice it. And it's you know, for a 5-minute track. Okay, now this third track, let's see, originally was called Robot. When I recorded it, I don't know why. And it was changed to the title Cylinder. And the cylinders, you know, when they would make the vinyl LPs, you know, they'd have a cylinder there, kind of like the old phonograph kind of things. Okay, and this is a long track. It's 9 minutes and 44 seconds. Let's take a listen to that. Okay, now here, right off the bat, is that pattern playing that I like so much. And then obviously they've got the layer of clean guitar voicings as well. To me, it gives it kind of a sci-fi sound, you know, a science fiction type sound to it. just a big fan of that kind of guitar playing. Probably because I like bands like, Tangerine Dream, when they would do those soundtrack albums, like Risky Business, and they did all kinds of them. The Miracle Mile was another one. So here I've got a couple layers going. What's nice though is I'm really starting to learn to use those humbucking pickup positions, one in the neck and one in the bridge. So one's real bright, so it shows up in one register, and then one that is the neck pickup, so it's not as bright. So it sounds like two separate patterns instead of one, combining together. Now what's interesting here is I have a long reverb trail, and when I'm actually playing some of those solo notes, it leaves behind this kind of reverb trail, but it's a really long one. We're talking, 900, 1,000 milliseconds trail. But what happens is, because it's looped, it starts to sound almost like this kind of real light keyboard type thing. But it's not at all, it's just a reverb trail. But because it's looped, it just stays there. It's kind of a cool thing I discovered. Okay, let's fast forward. Let's go to the 7-minute 41-second mark, or 7-minute 30-second mark. So here, pattern playing with different delays. These are dotted eighth notes here. So it gives you that kind of almost like a galloping kind of sound. And then I'm playing chord voicings, kind of little leads there, little fills, kind of like blues type fills. This is just my favorite kind of music, really, for me. Where it's playing those repeating patterns. Okay, so let's move on to track 4. Originally called Sam. But then the album name is called Repeater. Sounds a little cooler than Sam. Okay. And this is a short track. It's 4 minutes and 20 seconds long. Let's take a listen to that. So that's an interesting theme there. Here comes that pattern playing. And I should mention, when I'm playing these patterns, they're not like all the same, It's not the same pattern. They're different patterns each time. There's a swelled guitar notes that are then looped. And this is a lot slower tempo. unfortunately on this track, at the very beginning you can hear that squeaky chair a little bit. You know, just the microphone picked that up a little bit. There's some chord voicings. So of course I'm going to try to do something a little different with this next album, and I think one of the very first things I'm going to do is get a metronome or drum machine hooked up, and see how that turns out and how it changes my pattern playing. Maybe I'm even more in sync. Not that this was terribly out of sync, but the more you add layers of the pattern playing, the more in sync it has to be, and the more precise it has to be. When you start getting to 3 layers and 4 layers of different patterns playing different notes at the same time, it gets very complicated very quickly. Alright. But yeah, I'm very pleased with this album. So I got some ideas for the next one. And I think this is the... tomorrow is my birthday, and I'll be 50 years old. So I don't see myself doing another album before then. So I guess by 50 years old I'd reached 315 albums on there. Alright, see you next time. Bye.